Hi, everyone. Hard to follow fried chicken, but we're going to talk about something just as important, ROI and making some money. So I am Madelynn Brown, as Steve mentioned, and I work at Expedia. I actually recently moved over to a new team, our strategy and innovation team. So still looking at Omnichannel and our messages to customers, but now across all of our many Bex Group brands. So Orbitz and Travelocity and What If in Australia. So today I think we'll start with just some intros. Everyone wants to?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Laura Berkobin, and I'm struggling here presently. One second. I run digital and content at Pull Apart. It's an automotive retailer, so effectively I recycle cars. I buy old cars, sell used cars, I sell used parts, and I'm also scrapping the vehicles at the end of life. So, James?
Sweet.
Right?
Yeah, I'm James Brohamer, Overstock.com. Rough night last night, so bear with me.
It's really cold in here, too.
Ended up with 2 chains and 2 short and shut Austin down. So I'll stay on top of the ROI game just because I live and breathe it. But yeah, so that's what I do. I'm chief of staff at Overstock.
So Jeff Novak, I work for BuildASign, director of marketing there. We are pretty literal in our name. We build custom signs, political signs, real estate signs, all kinds of banners, displays, and then we also have a home decor brand, Canvas Prints. So we kind of tackle both sides of business products and consumer products, and yeah.
Hello, I'm Stephanie Wang, and I'm at Zillow, which is an online real estate marketplace. And I'm on the performance team, and I manage primarily our mobile and social channels.
Great. So to jump in, I think we mentioned a little bit about this yesterday, but really before you can have any models to look at your data and figure out how you want to measure ROI, making sure the data you're looking at is actually clean and accurate. So Jeff, I know you have some experience with that.
Yeah, so BuildASign's been around since 2005, and we've always really looked at return on ad spend. We're an e-commerce site, so very simple metric to be looking at. But we had a very aspirational goal of looking at lifetime marginal return on ad spend. So kind of taking into account all of our COGS and also how customers come back on different products. All the data existed for us in just many different places. We had it in FedEx, UPS, shipping cost data, and then we had our Google Analytics data, our ad platform data from Facebook and AdWords, and just kind of was all over the place. And so we really needed to kind of find, and then obviously our internal database data that had our, all of our COGS and basically how we're going to price a product. And how profitable product was for us. So we had to find a way to unify all of that data. That was really a tricky thing to be able to solve for this problem. I think that's where it comes into play, where we needed to figure out, what kind of systems, what kind of tools do we need to do that. And so, that's where we kind of dove into the exploration of a business intelligence platform that would solve those needs of unifying our data and basically act as our one true source that that we can always look at and we can trust and we can get data decisions quickly. So went through the kind of Tableau and Alteryx, looked at that tool, looked at Domo, looked at Power BI, looked at everything out there. Really settled on ClickSense for us, which was turned out to be our best solution for us. Had all the connectors to all the ad platforms that we really used and could tie into our database, and that was really what kicked off the this project. And now we're at a point where we can take you just have to find your connectors, find that one key that's going to be able to tie all these data sources back to that customer when they buy and when they place an order, and back to that email address. And it's been game changing for us as a business the past few years. Really helped us grow our revenue and EBITDA growing faster than we ever have before because we were able to do that. But it just takes, it's just not easy work. It takes time, takes effort, takes energy. But once you get to that level, really can propel your business.
So once you have, all of your data in a central place and you're actually able to utilize it, can you guys talk a little bit about what attribution models you're using to really measure ROI? I know few of you, I think, are using multi-touch. Is there anything else you're looking at?
Yeah, that's the hard part, attribution, right? Especially walled
Somebody
gardens.
take a shot or drink something. We're playing the bingo game.
Yeah, so we use MTA. We're pretty much plugged into Atlas, A360, UTM, and that's the key. I have no clue how much money I actually spend to get somebody to buy from me, like even now. So, you know, I can have Facebook totally dialed in, and I have no clue what's going on my DSP at the same time, or my Google PLAs, right? It's just, sometimes you just have to make that leap of faith, and we've been trying this for like 3 or 4 years, and the reality of it is it goes back to like, sometimes you just gut check it, because you can't quantify all of this stuff. Like, I can't definitively say how much I'm spending to get somebody to convert. And that's the truth. It's rough, yeah.
Stephanie, are you having similar issues at Zillow?
Yeah, I always say it's a bit of an art and a science because we use last click direct tracking, but we also have an MTA model. So we kind of have to use our models, which we have internal and external, all to bounce off each other to triangulate what's the best direction we should go in. Nothing's perfect, so it's a little bit of, we use our direct tracking to give us help on day-to-day optimizations, and we take a quarterly look with our larger MTA models and see, okay, are we making the right allocations in the right places? Should we shift? And yeah, it's kind of, nothing's perfect, but you're kind of using your gut to check if it's giving you the right indication of the right place to go. But yeah, a little bit of a...
Yeah, and Laura, I know you've actually found some new channels through using your data, right?
Yeah. So and I will say I've got quite a few systems that do not talk to one another. So I mean that's definitely a real thing. But because we have multiple business lines, right? So buying old cars, that's part of in our model. That's part of where I can win in margins, right? So understanding, you know, the cost of acquisition of that is very important to us, and I think there's definitely an opportunity for marketers to have better business acumen and tying that back into you know, language that's on a P&L, balance sheet, and so forth. But all of that to be said, that the marketing team at Pull Apart are just about 3.5 years old. So the company's 20 years old, but this is the first time that the team came in-house. And one of the things that I found is that we've got 10,000 people calling our call center, you know, every week. And the original thought and idea was that it was people trying to sell us cars. Well, it was actually people trying to do business with us on our retail side. And it was 40% of that call volume. And 60% of that were people who've never done business with us. So we piloted a team, and it actually drove 6 figures to the bottom line. And it took me about 3 years to do it. But all that to be said, that there are opportunities that you can look for and kind of dive into for existing traffic or existing demand, and then leveraging that in ways that maybe you didn't think about. And everything doesn't have to be perfect and connected. You just have to start diving in and get, I think the word scrappy, Kevin, where I used it. Yeah, scrappy. You have to get a little bit scrappy and kind of figure it out. But again, tie it back into the language and business acumen of the people who are running the business.
Yeah. And something I didn't hear anyone touch on, but I know is becoming more and more common, is RLT and lifetime value. So when you're looking at your data, you know, do you feel like you're using that more often now to really look, you know, maybe we're not getting the conversion right away, but over time we are building?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Like LTV is critical. We're finding that the average visitor comes 5 or 6 times before they convert. And previously we were all conversion, last click, and now we're realizing, no, people are exploratory. You know, they're going to show up at the website, but they're not going to buy anything right away. So we have to be able to determine what the LTV of that person is. And different channels have different LTVs, and sometimes it's counterintuitive, and you got to go back to your data. So say, for example, you come in through Facebook and your AOS is $68, and she comes in through Better Homes and Gardens or HGTV, and her AOS is $250 right there at the hit. But you're actually worth more than she is, because your LTV, and you have to be able to model that. And traditionally, as the retailer, you know, you look at just last click, you look at what they came in and bought, but the truth is the LTV of that customer can be lifetimes ahead of another customer. And it's difficult, but yeah, it's critical.
Yeah. think it's something important to note. And I think also, you know, as your businesses are different, it looks a lot different. So Stephanie, I imagine Zillow using that looks a lot different than someone who goes and purchases shoes all the time because of home.
Yeah, it's a huge challenge because we have such a long life cycle for people buying homes. Obviously, that can happen very infrequently. So it is something we have to think about, how do we try to measure over a longer time, and it's been hard on some channels. I think mobile apps is one area where we've been able to make the most progress with that, with the tracking infrastructure there, and really being able to help us put a higher value towards those users and track them over 6 months, 12 months, and see how long it takes for those actions to come back. And so because of that, we've been able to pay much more to acquire users on different channels because of how well we can measure and attribute that.
Yeah, so as Steve mentioned, I worked in email for a while, and I think one of the big obstacles we ran into with using measurement like that is people don't understand that, you know, per se a nurturing program, they're not going to see transactions right away, and they really want that conversion. So having those obstacles of working with stakeholders to say, no, this is a long-term play, lifetime value is going to be higher, but it's going to take a while to get there. So do you face any of that internally with your teams, or?
No, we face it with Wall Street every day. Yeah, investors, we're trying to shift that paradigm because you're absolutely right. Like, it's a long play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I'll chime in on that. So that is something that we're facing, but I think it goes down to having good data around what that LTV looks like and setting those expectations up front. If we want to invest in this area that we're, you know, I really go to you know, our C team and basically asking them, you know, how quickly do you want to see return on something? Do we want to be 6-month LTV profitable? Do we want to be, because a lot of our acquisition is done where, you know, we basically are not first purchase profitable on everything that we do. It's very rarely that we're first purchase profitable on acquisition. So it is, as is probably, you know, the majority of businesses. So our, you know, the looking at if by a product for us, if, you know, when someone's looking for real estate signs, we know that person's going to come back, you know, 2.7 times, and I know that number. You know, those are the numbers that we need to look at. And if someone's buying a bumper sticker, that they're going to come back 1.3 times. Like, we cannot invest the same amount of money acquiring this customer as we would this customer. So really, it's a product by product basis for us that we're looking at this, and then setting those expectations that we need to, you know, that we're going to be, you know, 6 months, you know, 3 months, a year, whatever it is, and then you have to have some foresight in your retention modeling as well to really kind of make sure that you're actually hitting those marks from a retention standpoint, and just kind of constantly doing checks on that.
Yeah. So switching gears a bit, both myself and Stephanie, so we work at brands where, you know, we have tons of subsidiary brands as well. So are there any benefits you're seeing from being able to tap into, you know, data across brands and really roll that up into your measurement?
Yeah, more recently, we're finally seeing benefits. Zillow acquired Trulia a couple years ago, and you know, one huge reason was it would be cool to see how everything can integrate. One of the biggest challenges was they were on a completely different data analytics platform, so that made it really fun trying to even understand what was going on. But from that, I think we've gotten to the place where we used to have different goals, different ways of measuring things. We're now at a place where we can look at ROI across the two, and one benefit is that we're able to really maximize for ROI across the different brands and put money into the channels that are going to have the best payback for Zillow Group as a whole, not necessarily Zillow or Trulia. And then I think the other benefit we've really seen from managing these brands together and being able to measure things and compare things is that we're able to test much more quickly across our brands and use some brands for testing these channels or these tests. And then, you know, if we don't have developer support to get something out on one brand, we can go to the other brand and see if they can do it faster. So that's been a really cool benefit that we've seen come out from that, and it happens at our New York brands too. We have 3 brands there, and we're really able to kind of maximize our testing and our budgets across the different brands.
And so one question on that I have, do you have all of your data in the same place across all of your brands, or is it siloed?
Definitely not. It is still a work in progress. We're trying to build out our data lakes and, you know, doing it one brand at a time and then eventually getting all the brands together. So initially we started looking at everything by, you know, cost per goals and trying to compare that, but we're like, well, the data is completely different, so these are all irrelevant when you start looking at them together. So we've moved towards looking at everything at an ROI basis and just trying to see how far are we and what's the relative percentage ROI positive we are in different channels, and then kind of allocating across that as the comparative metrics.
And so to wrap up, I think, you know, ROI is super important. It's great to look at that, but also there's the customer experience ultimately. And I know something I've experienced is certain cases where you're having to weigh the two. You know, for instance, we talked about this earlier, but false urgency messaging, you know. Does it push a conversion right away? Most likely. Is that what's best for lifetime value of that customer? Did they get anxiety when they booked with us? Maybe they don't want to come back? Most likely. So do you guys experience that? Any examples?
Any neurohacking? I do. No, I think, so what was your question exactly about the experience on the customer experience side?
So balancing, you know, your ROI with your customer experience. Like sometimes you have to choose, like, do I want the conversion or do I just want to make sure I'm giving a good customer experience?
Kind of like a Q4, Q1 scenario.
Oh, love those. So, yes, yeah. I mean, it definitely is that piece, right? Because I mean, again, depending on the money that we need in a certain quarter or so forth, there are other things that are driving that. But one of the things I like to look at is what is the cost of not doing this, right? So I've already paid for somebody to do something, and they're touching. It's one of my touch points, right? So they're in the store, or they're on the phone, they're on digital. Something drove them there. It was either word of mouth or it was something else, right? So what is the cost of not capitalizing on that moment in time? And then the other piece too is just looking at, it's not necessarily a jump in sales, but if you're losing sales, are you slowing the loss, right? So paying attention to something like that. And I kind of put those mixes into my argument because there is kind of, you know, to the team at KFC, there's that broader horizon that you're looking at, so.
Yeah, it's balanced by season. So, you know, in Q2, I'm looking at LTV. Q4, it's all, I just want them to come in and buy, right? And so you throw a coupon, throw a sale, and it really just kind of shifts in business priority depending on where you are in the season. So, yeah, so sometimes the goal is last click, I want you to buy, you're in, you're out. And then the rest of the year, it's like, no, I need to nurture you. I need you to come back. And we have a long time relationship with that consumer. So you got to balance it. Yeah, it's rough.
I guess I'll jump in on this one as well. But, you know, to me, it's when you're running these initiatives, when you're doing that, you know, anything that to create urgency or that you might be pricing different by different channels where people might be coming into your site. You know, in kind of creating this unfair, somewhat marketplace, I think you really have to look at your things like net promoter scores. Really keep track of that, where you're following your customer sentiment. Like, are they still happy with this? Are you seeing a dive for a 2-week time frame or a 3-week time frame when you're kind of performing these practices? Are you seeing a dip in that? You know, is this something that we should be alerted to? Is this something that our consumers are really finding intrusive? Then maybe we should take a step back on that particular initiative. But if you really are just following that kind of customer sentiment over time, I think that's really critical to kind of solving that.
Yeah, I mean, I think at Zillow, it's similar but a little bit different. We've been pushing more and more into making sure we're driving quality traffic and that's going to have the right ROI. But I think that's like a long-term benefit, and in the short term, so we're making a lot of UX changes and different changes to the site to improve the customer experience. And of course, that can lower your conversion rate and the amount of traffic that turns into qualified leads. So that's been something we've been battling with recently, really balancing like the growth and how much volume we can drive with getting the right kind of traffic. So it's definitely something that's a challenge for us marketers as we go more and more into quality.
Remember the balance of capital and customers. Just 2 C's, capital and customers.
Any questions from the audience? Our panel?
Yeah, it's early. Come on, guys.
We don't have any KFC gift cards, so we have no.
You can ask anything. The weather.
No?
I don't have the winning lotto tickets, so I can't tell you.
No, we stopped and got like poster board scratchers.
Of course you did.
They're like this big.
No one? You all making a lot of money? No? Yes?
Well, I would like maybe to engage a little bit more one of the topics of the panel, which was marketing as an ROI center and the idea that it was, or as a profit center.
Yeah.
Could you sort of engage that question, whether you're thinking about it and how you're thinking about it, and if any of you are starting along that path, how you're measuring it? I think Andy gave us an example with Best Buy the other day. I'm wondering if you're thinking in that direction too, where you can present to your to the higher ups that marketing is actually is making money and is actually has an ROI of its own.
Yeah, I can take a stab at that one. So with our customer sales and support team, historically companies see call centers as just they're cost centers, right? But I mean, I can tell you right now that people on the phone have talked to more potential customers and existing customers this morning than I probably will for an entire year. So if you treat people like that, they're going to treat your customers like that, right? So I mean, you got to also remember that your employee is a customer and an extension of your brand. All of that to be said, that with the pilot with the customer sales and support team, we set up CRM and trained the team to send out coupons so that we could tie that traffic from the call center to one of our stores. So we piloted with 2 stores. And we rolled the team out formally about a year ago. And it is profitable. So it's now a new team within the business. It's shifted the understanding of the call center is just one entity that exists to buy cars to something that is now an operations function. And it drove 6-figure to the bottom line. So it's profitable. That's absolutely, yes. So I mean, it's there, but again, you have to tie it back into the financials, right? And you have to really kind of dive in and think differently and really challenge the status quo and challenge what pre-existing notion is there and why is it, and just dive in.
Yeah, I mean, profit's everything. We have a term called nectar at Overstock, which is bottom line profit. And so everything we manage to goes to bottom line profit. And we look at margins on everything. Everything that we spend, coupon spend, ad spend, it's all measured down into the bottom line of profit. Because at the end of the day, your company is going to go under unless you're making money. And the main driver of making money is marketing.
And one of the questions you can ask yourself too is where you're kind of like chewing on, okay, what exists, why does it, is, why would somebody not do business with you, right? Because I guarantee you a competitor is thinking about that, and or a startup just waiting to take us out by our knees, so.
I was just going to add, I think it depends at what growth stage your brand is at. So at Zillow, we have Zillow, Trulia, HotPads, different brands, and the way we think of it is for some of the brands that we really want to grow hard at early stages, we might be less profitable and just try to be break even, or even go a little bit more in the, on the not profitable side, but for the long-term gains. And then some brands that are much more lead focused or more mature, like our mortgage business, we're driving at 20% margins or 30% margins, and just continuing to try to push the boundaries on that so that we can stay more profitable. So I think it really depends on what your objectives are with what you're trying to use the marketing for, and how much you're willing to invest in the long term as well.
I'm curious if any of you are measuring for the negatives in terms of things like brand safety. As you're moving your brand across all of these different channels, many of which have become more and more challenging in terms of being able to monitor and regulate reputation. Has there been any effort to monitor negative ROI, or where there might be damage being done to your brand across channels?
So we have a reputation management program it's probably about 2 years old. And we use that, not only do we respond to these reviews, and we try to do so in a timely manner, we've got the service level agreements for that, but I mean, it's part of the feedback loop. So that's one of the things that we look at, and again, you kind of go back to, like, why would somebody not do business with me? Is it because we're not picking up the phone? Is it because pricing is off? Is it because I've got a really jerk employee. I'm so glad I didn't cuss. I did so well there. Is it just because there's just a misalignment in expectations in the way that I've lent something and the way the person has received that information? And some of those things that word of mouth is huge, right? So I mean, think about the times where you had a bad experience with something or a good experience, and how many people did you go tell about it offline, right? We don't know that that exists. In fact, that we do know that it exists. So you have to really kind of play around with that art and science, if you will, and figure out, okay, if we continue to operate in this way, what is the cost to the business, right? So for example, like a call center, if you're not picking up the phone, we can keep lying to ourselves and saying that, like, oh, it's too expensive to pick up the phone. It's like, well, it's pretty expensive to not pick up the phone. So it's that type of lensing, and hopefully it answers your question.
We're constantly doing damage control. And quite often for things that are not really outside of our control. So, when we ship a product, you're kind of working on your carrier. You're relying on that carrier to, deliver that product in, good condition. Quite often that they're not. They're damaged. They're scuffed. Whatever it might be. We're also dealing with customers who have unreasonable expectations where. They uploaded it's their design, it's their product, and they're like, well, I can't see this from the street. And we're like, well, you uploaded it. So, we will make those kind of reconciliations for people. And once again, monitor that NPS score, make sure that we're keeping that consistent. Right now, we know customer lifetime value is worth X amount, so we're willing to make those concessions to keep someone happy, even if it's not our fault, if it's not something that we've done. So, constantly going on to responding to Facebook, negative commentary, negative feedback about our products and our services, and trying to go above and beyond. We have a huge customer lifetime program customer love program where we just do random kind of acts of kindness to reach out to our customers, especially customers that have when they've talked to a customer service rep and it's a special moment or something like that they're buying a shirt for some special moment, we'll do something like send them an extra gift card or send them some kind of gift not related to this at all, send them flowers, whatever it is. We have a military banner program that it's a troops program, and we give free welcome home banners to troops, and all these things that we do to kind of manage customer expectation and keep it high for our brand. So we're just very kind of constantly proactively doing these things.
I guess I ask because both of your answers speak to that the negatives almost always come from direct interactions with your either product or your services and people rather than from your advertising. And I think that's actually an important point right now because we're going through a period where digital advertising is probably, when it comes to its reputation, is probably at its low, and there's a lot of at least public sensitivity around ad adjacencies, associations with a variety of different social channels and the ways those channels are policing themselves. But it doesn't sound like, from the buyer side, you really are seeing much of an impact on any of that, from any of that.
Well,
so I'm wondering, I guess my question is that actually is that a phantom
cheap,
issue or not?
It's, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's still cheap though. Like when you look at national upfront cable and then you look at a CPM on digital, I can wrap it with IAS and I'll pay $3. It's programmatically. But you're right. There is a lot of so yeah, we use integral ad science and we do ad monitoring. But the industry has changed in the last 5 or 6 years where as a marketer, yeah, it keeps me up. Like 5 years ago, I would have just done a direct buy with Time Inc. and, hung my hat up at the end of the day and said, okay, I got some digital. Now, you have to completely monitor it, yeah.
Yeah, and I will say, adding to that on the other side, less of the mechanics, but more of like, so pull apart coming from the automotive industry, like of course, like, oh, sexy women, right? Gets them in the door. But we actually were just completely misaligned with reality of what our customers really care about, which is not that. And we were not, the brand continuity was completely off. And it was actually alienating our employees, which again is somebody else who is a customer set of our company because they're one of the main drivers of customers at the store, on the phone, on digital, and so forth. And so now we're shifting that. It's kind of like this massive Titanic. This is Titanic. And
Is that the Titanic? No, did the Titanic again.
And we're having to shift that. So from a messaging standpoint, absolutely, I've had negative reactions.
Where'd you get that insight? I mean, how did you find out that you actually were misaligned?
God, this is even better. Okay, so when I first came on, we launched an AR app. And it was before its time. It was confusing. It was one of those things where it was really cool, but it was too soon. And we didn't, the legacy app, we just did not do a great job in sunsetting that. And the AR was that you would point at a calendar of women. This is getting good. And the idea was that we would reinforce them wanting to see the women dancing, because you would point it at the calendar and we had like dancing videos. Like, this is really when I first came onto this company. I was like, what the hell am I doing? And I reminded myself, I'm like, I want to learn. These are smart people. I want to learn. No, they're super smart. But all that.
Were men making this, by the way? Just.
Yes.
Was this an instance where a little male dominance in the marketing department was actually veering them in a certain direction? They could have used more female input.
What's interesting is a little bit, yeah. And the other piece is because it's been a part of the marketing for so long, and it had been working.
And I thought I had it bad with Tina Fey and the O-Face.
And all that to be said was that we just were kind of, again, living this line. You have to be willing to look at yourself and own that, right? But what we found was that not only was it just piss poor app, it alienated our staff. The women who worked there, which 50% of people in our stores are women, wanted nothing to do with this, nothing. And it was the best thing that could have happened to us.
Well, guys, Maddie, guys, thank you very much.